Tom, which is your item. Just to start, I'm going to give Rick's at the back, getting a coffee. Give Rick a couple of minutes, and then Martin a couple of minutes, and then we'll work through this before 2 o'clock.
Thank you.
All right, when you're ready, Rick.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I forgot to get myself a coffee. Around on pure caffeine. Thank you. Well, this is a challenging item, and I think the issue is about the timeliness of this, as to how quickly we can get this thing to be done. I am very concerned that with the number of droughts, pressures on the water system, pressures everywhere, that we need to have answers sooner rather than later. I don't know that there are any new things that are going to be emerge from an investigation which we don't already know today. So I have a strong preference to move forward and to get things done. I want to have the strength in the consultation at the end of the process when we've got some conclusions to test and adjust those. So I am very much in favour of option 2.2. I just feel that having a panel and other things in between will slow this process down considerably, and will mean significant delays, which I think in the end will be to the detriment of our community. I would suggest that, given it's a significant decision, the choices are quite stark, that it's a little bit rushed to make it here today. So I would suggest, Chair, that the item be deferred to next council meeting so that people can fully consider both options, reflect on them, have some discussions, etc. And then when we get to the council meeting where the paper goes up, make the final choice on which option, whether it's 2.2 or 2.3.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to leave the motion on the table for that very reason. And I'd ask the staff to think about the question that's at the end of this little meeting. And I just want to give you a little picture of the model that I had in mind here of the roving inquiry. My concern behind the need for this, whether it's a panel or it's staff, I'm still open to, but the concern is that we involve the community and the stakeholders that are so passionate about these topics right along the way. And that if we just go into the dark room that we heard about before and write a report on the assumption that we know everything, we may save time, but we won't get to the end goal any faster. Because unless we include the voices that we heard through the Future Farming Trust around regenerative farming, unless we include mana whenua, unless we include the municipalities and the municipal water suppliers and the irrigators in options that are within this remit to reduce the difference between supply and demand, there's going to be no ownership of the outcome and will be no further ahead. And so I was attracted to the panel idea, concerned a little bit, as I think Tom touched on, with the risks around it, that it becomes clunky. We have debates about who should be on it. But equally charged to, in a sequential, structured, time-bound way, go to those different voices. What do we need to look at? Then, what do you say about those things you said we need to look at? What do you say about our draft report on those matters? Come back to us for us to make the decision as the council. And if we include those voices on the way, as you would with an inquiry, not everyone talking at once, not taking 2 years, then I think we can go through the agenda of what phase 3 policy interventions in particular for this RWA needs to cover, and what would ultimately be an end product that our communities better accept, and we will finally get to the answers that we need in terms of what this gap is. So there's a range of competencies that the panel would need to have, and I would just like the staff, while we go away, to think about what value it would add to include on whoever this entity is, option 2 or option 3, competencies that are outside this organisation. Is it a councillor, or is it more important, in fact, to have an irrigator or a farmer or a tangata whenua representative working with you in the same way that James did with the RWSS? So that's what I just, there was a hedge between options 2 and 3. We're not going to recommend which one. I'm actually attracted to option 3, but I just like the tyres kicked on that a little bit more.
Thank you for sharing. I'll let everyone else have their comment, but I'll start timing, unfortunately, or else we'll be here. So who would like to go next? Kapai one.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I did second the motion when it was put formally just before we broke for the access. I have different sort of concerns than councillors have, and my logic for seconding this was that if there wasn't a problem, this motion wouldn't be on the table. So in other words, if we had an efficient system already, then we wouldn't be discussing it. So clearly there's a need for it, that those involved, officers involved, have identified that and come up with this paper that offers us some solutions. And so if there is an issue, then clearly there's an alternative that's required. I think that the alternative has to be explored in its depth. And so to circumnavigate it or whatever is actually, from my perspective, to dismiss an idea before it's been fully explored. The current discussion we've just had now, the renewed discussion, is about taking it from here to council, for council to do. So then it's become a straightforward governance type decision made by the council, which begs a question about what's the purpose of this committee. Is it we can't make a decision, so it goes up the line to the council? So I just put that to the councillors. I'm not debating it. I'm just saying it just begs a question from a procedural point of view, from my perspective. So I haven't changed in my position. I think it is. I'm not saying that it's the answer or not. What I am saying is that it needs to be fully explored, and some of those details that were missing or debated by councillors need to be explored, and the proposers need to be able to come back with their answers to it. If they don't satisfy those answers, then it becomes a straightforward decision or rejection of the option. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Councillor Foss.
Process question first. Is it an option that this comes back to EIC, Environmental Committee, or is it a timing issue that it must go straight back up? Is that an option? Because I absolutely very value Mr. Marker's input and thought.
So it could lie on the table to the next committee meeting, but I guess that's December, and our preference would be very much to keep this moving.
Okay, all right. So my points are. So thank you, Mr. Marker. It's very sound, but again, it points to. I understand, Tom, why you didn't have more information earlier. You explained that because you have appendices for Africa, if you like, but actually that's where my concerns lie, as in whatever option we do, and as I said earlier, I prefer 2, but potentially 3. It's the devil was in that detail big time, and there's some robust discussions to have, even with some of the points that are on that table right there. So for timeliness, etc., I'm comfortable that it sits on the table to go up to the next level, but can I ask perhaps that we take soundings from colleagues around this table to help better inform us on the way through, and so we can actually get on and look at the job. And again, picking up Mr. Marker, I have similar thoughts in that if we had some kind of standing committee, or there is a gap needing to be filled there, otherwise, exactly right, we wouldn't have been talking about something about the council's engagement is not working for us to have to consider something as serious as this, I think. So perhaps we just need to do some other things better, deeper, wider, or something, so we don't feel the need to form a better panel or project team to consult with the community about a particular part of the environmental things that we are in charge of. So thanks, Chair. Hopefully I've seen inside your time limit.
Thank you. Councillor Curtin.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chair. I have a feeling that there's a nugget or a little gem in each of the contributions that have been made. I'm attracted, for example, to Councillor Williams's roving forum scenario with a panel, and I have pondered a variation on that, whereby we do have that, but it's a static panel in that it's catchment based, that it's facilitated by some key players in that environment, picking up on the comment from Councillor Barker and Chairman Rex when he commented that it ought to be driven from the council, so that, if you like, the decision makers, the elected decision makers, are fronting up and being a significant part of that dialogue with that community. So there's a direct line of sight, but for the stakeholders, and for example in Tamatea, have a direct line of sight in that panel, a panel inquiry around that. The other element that I think, and we go to where Dr. Marker has made the obvious observation that our previous attempts have been significantly wanting. In other words, we're trying to address a problem, and there is a problem. Those problems relate in particular to Mana Whenua, and having those views heard, and that's a diverse scenario in itself. We've got the RPC. I'd like to, for example, to have the RPC consider these options as well. At the end of the day, that'll be the pinch point, unless we get it right at that level. We've got Kahungunu itself, so we've got a number of pinch points that we need to address. So, and then the ones that I've talked about earlier today for staff to contemplate is the structure, the presentation, if you like, resetting the presentation, looking at the comms strategy that goes with that. So we've got all these moving parts that we need to pull together, and I'll be interested to have Tom, with all his wisdom of Solomon, to come back with a paper that somehow cobbles this together. I'm sure he can do that in 10 minutes flat, but I think that's where we've landed, Mr. Chair.
And Councillor Van Beek.
Yeah, I favour Rick's proposal, but at the moment I'm still very torn between the two options. So I need to spend a little bit more time in getting visibility of what it actually means, and possibly spend a bit of time with staff as well to understand. To me, it's special with the time frame. I'm time driven, or talking about August 2021. That's a long way out, and there already is some fear in the community around what the coming season may look like, and we won't fix anything within a season, but actually having at least some work underway will actually satisfy that we're actually on our way. We still won't have a solution, but at least we'll work on the right solution, and I think we need a little bit of time. But December is definitely too late. So I propose what Councillor Barker has proposed.
Fantastic. I might shoot to the staff now, to Tom, on wrapping up the comments that have been given and our steps forward.
Look, the feedback is invaluable, and it was, and part of the purpose of the paper. I think I understand what needs to come back, but I'll probably take some extra counsel before we sort of like shape that up. But look, ultimately we're solving for your riddle, and that was the riddle that you set down in your motion at corporate and strategic. So, so it's got to be a solution that you're comfortable with. I think there are, there's efficient outcomes and there are enduring outcomes, and those are the and ultimately we want an enduring outcome.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So the only other thing I'll add to that, sorry, is that, to Dr. Marker's point, the way I see, and look, and it's not my area anymore, but the way I see the NPS 2020 coming out and what you need to achieve as an organisation in terms of engagement to develop a plan under the NPS 2020 is going to require, a new model of engagement in this, and so hopefully whatever we do land on here could be a little bit of a tester for what that model might be. I don't know
Thank
if
you,
James
Tom.
can add any comments to that.
And I'd like to apologise to Dr. Marker. I hadn't realised you seconded that motion. My eyes were this way, and so my apologies.
Okay.
So we do have a new motion put up on the screen there, that the item be deferred to the next available council meeting on the 30th of October to allow adequate time to consider the options to better informed decision making, and that's particularly looking at option 2 and 3. Yeah.
So the next available council meeting is actually the 30th of September.
Oh, sorry.
30th September,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, my mistake.
Now, is that along the lines?
Sure, that's
Councillor
right.
Barker?
Yep.
Is that achievable, practical, or just to the next appropriate council meeting?
I think September, it's only a few weeks. We've got fleshed out the issues pretty carefully here now. I think it is, and I think councillors would have some discussions between ourselves before the council meeting.
Yeah.
A bit more, and the issues are getting clearer and clearer. And I think we'll have an informed discussion when we get to it.
Fantastic. So we've got a mover.
There is a
And the seconder, Dr. Marker.
Sure.
Sorry?
Did you second this one as well? I missed your last one, but this one
I didn't second this
Still
one.
need a decision.
must
It
have
was the
been.
original one.
William.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just
Councillor
suggested that my
Williams.
motion be left on the table, but
Yes,
of course, we're not
that's-
going to be back here till
yeah.
December, so that doesn't work. So let's make this a nice little harmonious thing. Councillor Barker, and I'll second your motion.
Oh, there we are. Consensus is broken out. Do we sing Kumbaya now?
Consensus to do nothing. Get a room.
Okay, we've got James.
Just look, at the risk of complicating things, we have scheduled a water security workshop after that council meeting on the 30th.
Yeah.
So if you would rather have a less formal discussion around all of these issues in that workshop, we could do that then. We wouldn't be able to get a formal decision on the day, but we could certainly start down the track of whatever you direct us to on that day.
What was that workshop for? Would we be displacing the purpose of that workshop?
No, so that workshop was to be primarily focused on Hiratonga, update on Hiratonga.
Oh, was it?
But it was also an opportunity, and look, and we were hoping, because we understand there's a bit of security fatigue, and so we were hoping to have that as a now we're going to go away for a long time. I just want to just give a reassurance to the table that there's nothing about the delay in this decision that is holding back any of these work streams.
1 and 2, phases 1 and 2 are still going.
Yeah.
Could I just respond to James's point to say that if this paper is going to go up to the next full council meeting in the 30th of September, we are going to have, prior to the council meeting, an informal councils only meeting. We'd have an informal discussion there.
Yeah.
And if at that point we feel that we're ready to debate, to decide on the motion in the formal council meeting, then we can do that. If we feel we're not, well then we can decide to defer it yet again. But I think we need to keep nudging the issue along to making a decision.
Look, I was going to be on annual leave that day and wouldn't be using my normal chief executive's briefing slot, so I'd hand that to Tom for that day.
Perfect.
So the meeting starts at 11, the regional council meeting starts at 11, so if there's time beforehand.
2 o'clock, and then my session's usually at 10, so you could take the 10.
Yep. Perfect.
10 o'clock.
Do you want to
Okay.
swap the workshop to earlier and push out the council meeting?
Can we just leave the motion as before the council meeting and we'll work it out later?
Yeah, work out,
Okay.
so council get the details.
Yeah, if you can just leave it like that. So, Councillor Barker, would you like to speak to the motion?
motion,
Councillor
I'm happy to leave it.
Williams?
I think it's all been said.
No, so that's put to the table. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the second to last item is discussion of minor items. Councillor Barker. Timing.
An indispensable, intrinsically valuable, irreplaceable part of our lives. I didn't attend the 9 o'clock meeting on Monday for the agenda for the EICC meeting because I had something else, but I should have been here on Monday. Had a meeting scheduled for Tuesday and a meeting scheduled for Wednesday, which means that councillors are coming to the building here 3 times in a week. And personally, I didn't think that that was an enormously efficient use of the time. So could I ask the Chief Executive to have a discussion with those who are in charge of setting these meeting dates down, because we don't always have it, to have a look at them in terms of how they can be better constructed together to make our use of councillors' time as efficient as is possible.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Very short.
So that is our public included part of the meeting done. So if we can please have a mover and a seconder to move to excluded public meeting.
Seconder.
Yep. Councillor Williams and Councillor Van Beek. All who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against, pass. Aye, cameras off.